I'm Jude, I'm a queer man in my mid-30s, and in an attempt to remind myself that life really actually is worth living, I've bought a house in the middle of nowhere and moved to the Scottish countryside.
I've entered my steel toe cap work boot era, and I couldn't be happier about it.
I wanted to say thanks for all of the really useful lawn mowing tips you left in the comments on my last video. Several people said, Jude, that is supposed to be a self-propelled lawnmower. And in case it wasn't painfully obvious from the video footage, that was being 100% Jude propelled. So I've got about a third of the grass left to mow, and today I'm going to see if I can figure out the self-propelling bit of the lawnmower.
Well, that was easy. This self-propelled function kind of felt like cheating, so I only used it to go up the hills.
The barn kind of unnerves me. At some point it's going to be additional living accommodation, but right now, kind of feels like a dungeon. While I'm out in the barn looking for a hose pipe, which is definitely not in here, I thought I'd share my kindling collection. Someone commented and said that I should stock up on kindling for the winter to go with my firewood, and I thought I'd share the 11 crates of kindling that I have on hand. Most of these were lovingly chopped up by my father. My parents had a wood burning stove, and my dad, one of his hobbies was organising his log collection and acquiring kindling, usually from people's skips, and chopping it up and stacking it neatly in crates in his garage. When I was clearing out their house, I knew that I couldn't leave all his hard work behind, and I had an open fire at my last house, so I moved all of the crates, there was probably about 20 of them, up to Scotland. For my last house. I had to get a little extra shed in order to store them all in. And I've moved all the remaining crates, apart from 2 that I couldn't fit in the car, and I gave to my neighbour to the new house. So I should have plenty of kindling for the winter. This crate in particular has an interesting selection of what my dad classed as kindling. This piece of wood is very solid. I don't really know anything about wood, so I don't know what kind of wood it is, but I'm pretty sure it's too good to go on the fire. I could sand it and use it for something. Gonna keep hold of that. This is a kitchen roll holder that we had in the kitchen when I was growing up. This is quite clearly a drumstick. My dad was not a musical man. I have no idea where this came from. Another drumstick. Most bizarrely, loads of Jenga blocks. I don't even know where he got these from. My dad was a very resourceful man.
What you're witnessing here is a very artfully documented, complete and utter waste of my time, but more on that later.
I'm conducting a science experiment. I need to see if I screw the guttering to this piece of wood here, if it's going to catch the water when it flows off the roof, or if it's going to miss it. And I'd like to do that before I put the guttering up. I really need to stop thinking, this will be a really quick job. I'll have it done in maybe an hour, because every time I do, something goes awry. In theory, all I had to do here was screw the guttering to the shed, clip it all together, and then boom, guttering. But that is not the case. I can't screw the guttering directly to the shed because the water will overflow it, so I need to bulk it out a little bit. I cut these little orange blocks and thought, that'll do the job. Every time I screw into the orange block, even though I drilled a pilot hole, they just split. I don't know why. If someone who knows more about wood than I do could tell me, that would be great. But in the meantime, I'm going to go and find some different wood to screw onto the shed and do exactly the same thing all over again.
Not quite the same colour, but leftover log store paint coming in handy. Phase 1 is done.
I found this 210 litre liquid storage barrel buried in some weeds along with some very old guttering behind my cottage. And I think at some point someone was planning on turning it into a water butt. And I thought, sure, I can do that. I bought all of the fixings that I'd need and I made a plan to build a base with some old fence posts. And now I'm starting to second guess myself. I cleaned it out using some eco washing liquid, and now I realised that I have no idea what was stored in this barrel originally. And I did some Googling and I don't really want to die. So, as frustrating as it is, because I have all of the supplies to turn this into a water butt or a rain barrel if you're not in the UK, I think I'm gonna leave it and I'm gonna try and use something else. My long-term plan for water storage is to get a couple of secondhand IBC totes or IBC tanks to store my rainwater in, and they're fairly easy to get hold of around here. Lots of people use them on their farms, but you normally have to go and collect them, and I am not fitting one of those in the back of my car. It's never gonna happen. And I don't have a tow bar, I don't have a trailer, I don't have a van, and I don't have a pickup truck or friends with any of those things. So it's going to have to wait a while. A pickup truck is the dream. I am a huge fan of getting secondhand stuff and hauling timber and things around, and it would be really, really useful. However, as is so often the case, my budget is not quite aligned with my dreams, so it's going to have to wait. Hopefully, at some point, I will find someone fairly local who is willing to deliver them at a cost, and I'll be able to get hold of a couple. But in the meantime, the search is on for another receptacle I can use to store my rainwater in. I might just have to give in and drive to a DIY store and pick up a couple of water butts. I don't use this shed. It's earmarked for demolition at a later date when I need this space for something. But for now, it's just there, storing some greenhouse staging. What I want right now is this paving slab. I'm going to use it to stand my water butt on.
If you live alone, get yourself one of these trolleys. They're really useful for moving stuff that you can't carry on your own. At some point I will invest in a heavier duty version, but this one works fine for now. The pile of earth I found in one of the bushes is coming in handy for levelling out the ground where I dug out the buddleia stump.
I've decided I can definitely link a second water butt next to the first one, so I've ordered another one to go and pick up next time I'm in town at the weekend. And in the meantime, I'm going to wander around the property and see if I can find another slab to use as a base. I don't know much about this sort of thing, but I am 95% sure that this suspicious corrugated material is asbestos. So I won't be touching that. This, however, is a paving slab, and is exactly what I need. While I was digging out my tree stump last week, I got a lot of comments from people saying, Jude, you're using the wrong kind of spade. That's not a digging spade. And while I appreciate that you probably know a lot more about spades than I do, it quite literally says digging spade on the spade. It says here, digging spade, ideal for digging in medium or heavy soil, solid forged steel head and socket, durable ash wood shaft. Always good to know. I feel like it is probably 1,000,000 years old. It's from B&Q, probably when B&Q first opened. Apparently digging spades are supposed to be pointier, so I'm gonna have to investigate. How do you spend your evenings? Well, I look up different types of spades on Google. I have 4 different spades, all inherited from my father, although I would say that 2 of them are definitely shovels. I would definitely say this is a shovel from my limited experience of such things. But yeah. This is this is my best option right now, so this is what I'll be using. I do really appreciate all of the help and advice in the comments. A lot of these are questions that I would have just phoned my dad up to ask. And I can Google things, and I do Google things very regularly, but it's nice to have like personal anecdotes and experience sometimes. I know I'm forever saying that nothing's perfect, but that is pretty close. I'll take it. The rainwater diverter that was supplied with the water butt doesn't fit the size of the downpipe that I installed on the shed, so I feel slightly vindicated in my purchase of a separate rainwater diverter that I bought for my initial plan of using the old barrel as a water butt. So hopefully this should fit, as it was designed to go on these exact pipes. Now I'm going to test it. If it works, I'm going to cut a little bit off the diverter pipe so the water butt can sit closer to the downspout and there'll be space for the second butt. But if it doesn't work, I might edit out this whole fiasco and pretend it never happened.
Brief moment of panic before I realised that some doofus had installed the diverter upside down, and apparently there's an arrow on these things for a reason. First one done. Luckily I had plenty of things to keep myself busy with while I waited for the second to be ready to collect.
I've had a water butt before. I know how they work. Although I've never had two linked together, so I'm going with the manufacturer's instructions with a little sideline into Google just for extra security. And they are linked together at the top. So in theory, this one will fill up first, and then when this one is full, the water will start flowing into the secondary one. I don't know what's to stop it just flowing straight out of the diverter down the downpipe and out into the flower bed. I did do physics GCSE, got a B, but it was a long time ago. So I'm just going to wait till it rains and see what happens. Probably won't have to wait too long because it's Scotland. For everyone who seems to think I know what I'm doing, this pipe is not supposed to look like this. It keeps falling out of the bottom of the diverter because it doesn't go straight into the ground and it isn't supported from the bottom. There's probably some kind of special solvent adhesive I could buy to attach it all together. But I don't have any of that. I do have a roll of black gaffer tape, so that's what I'm going to use.
A bit of wisdom I picked up from one of my favourite podcasts. If you want it to move, WD-40. If you don't want it to move, cable ties and gaffer tape.
With these two water butts, I now have the ability to catch and store 460 litres of rainwater. And although Scotland isn't known for its droughts or prolonged periods of dry weather, the area at the bottom of the garden where these water butts are is where I'm planning on growing my vegetables. And the nearest water supply is in the barn, which is quite a long way to go to get water. So it'll be really useful to have these down here. There's a couple of things I'd like to do to make this setup work better. I'd like to add half a slab in front of each water butt so that the watering cans have a steady space to rest on. I'd also like to pick up one of those gutter balloons that you put in the top of downpipes to stop them filling up with leaves because the shed is surrounded by trees.
If you've got this far, I'm currently a couple of thousand people away from hitting 25,000 subscribers, and to celebrate reaching that milestone, I thought I'd film a little Q&A video so you can get to know me better. Leave any questions in the comments and I'll answer some when I hit 25k. In the meantime, thanks for watching and I'll see you next weekend.